Momo pleaded with her father to take the day off, explaining that she had something important planned. Despite her pleas, her father was determined to continue working, citing the many responsibilities he had that others were counting on him for. But he reassured her that he would make it back home as soon as he could. Momo revealed the tickets for an upcoming choir concert to her father as a special anniversary gift for her parents. But Momo didn't take it well. She accused her father of being selfish and a liar, and most hurtfully, she told him that she didn't care if he came back at all. Then Momo stormed out. After her father leaves, a phone rings and Momo's mother answers. It is very bad news. The ship that her father was riding to work had an accident, and he was one of the casualties. Momo's mother cries and Momo is shocked as she listens to the news. She suddenly goes to her father's room. Momo discovered a letter written by her father to her, but it only contained 2 words, "Dear Momo." Momo cried. She is struggling to come to terms with the overwhelming grief and sense of loss that she feels. Many days pass after the death of Momo's father. Her mother decides to move from their home in the city to a small island in Japan, where Momo's mother grew up. As they ride on a boat to the island and sightsee, strange-looking water droplets fall from the clouds and drop on Momo's head. These droplets are important to the plot. When they arrive at their aunt's house on the island, which will be their new home, Momo's aunt asks her to help lift some of her things to the attic. While doing so, Momo catches sight of an old very spooky comic book and her aunt happily gives it to her. As soon as Momo leaves the attic, the strange droplets that fell on her head earlier go to the spooky comic book that her aunt had given her. Remember those 3 droplets? That night, while in her bedroom, Momo opens the letter that her father had written to her again, wondering what else he might have had to say to her. Momo hears a noise coming from the attic and wonders what it is. The next day, Momo and her mother go to the grocery store. Momo is disappointed to discover that there are no malls on the island. While they are shopping, Momo's mother meets a young boy named Yoda and introduces him to her daughter. She asks Yoda to show Momo around the island and help her make friends, but Momo is shy and withdrawn. When her mother goes to work, Momo is left alone. She goes to the attic and reads the comic book, but notices that the character drawings have been erased. She hears the noise again and becomes afraid, so she goes downstairs. At the table, she sees 3 empty cups of yogurt and is puzzled about it. Momo goes outside, terrified, hears someone talking in the attic. When she looks back, she sees 2 strange figures like ghosts trying to follow her. She panics and runs as fast as she can, but stops for a moment and realizes that the ghost-like figures is close behind her. She runs again and gets lost on the island. Yoda finds Momo with a panicked expression and asks if she is lost. He tells her that if she gets lost on the island, she should just head towards the sea. Momo tells Yoda that she needs to meet up with her mother now, and he invites her to go bridge jumping into the sea with his friends. When Momo tells her mother about the strange things happening in the house, her mother doesn't seem to care. As Momo stands by the door, a small ghost-like goblin shape approaches and licks her legs. She screams and her mother panics. Momo asks her mother if someone is standing beside her, but her mother doesn't see anything and tells her that it's just her imagination. At dinner, Momo mentions going back to Tokyo, but her mother insists that they have sold their house and this is now their new home. The next day, her mother goes to work again and Momo is alone in bed. She hears a conversation in the attic that mentions her name and becomes panicked and wants to leave the house. She goes to meet Yoda and his friends, who are going swimming and jumping off a bridge. Although she is initially hesitant, Momo agrees to join them in an effort to get out of the house. However, as she is about to jump off the bridge, she becomes overwhelmed with fear and backs out, returning home instead. While going home, Momo gets caught in the rain and looks for a place to take shelter. As she waits for the rain to stop, a ghost-like figure suddenly appears beside her. Momo is shocked and terrified to see a monster-like creature, and she runs as fast as she can back to her home. The next day, when Momo wakes up, her mother is at work again. She goes back to sleep, but is awoken by the presence of 3 goblins in front of her. The goblins try to intimidate Momo into feeding them, but she is terrified and armed with a broom, swinging at the goblins. As it turns out, the goblins are not dangerous, but rather cowardly and always hungry. One of the goblins drops their travel pass on the floor, and Momo picks it up before the goblins can. The goblins beg for the pass back, explaining that it is very important to them and that they won't be able to return to where they came from without it. Momo threatens to break the pass and tells the goblins to leave her and her mother alone, and they comply, leaving the house. The 3 goblins are wondering why Momo can see them. They speculate that the strange water droplets that fell on Momo's head might be the reason why she can see them. Momo goes outside for a while, but when she returns, she is shocked to find that the goblins have come back to her house. She tries to break their travel pass, but the goblins are not affected by it, telling her that if she breaks it, they will be stuck in the house with her forever. One of the smaller goblins drags Momo to a place where there is a lot of vegetables, and Momo realizes that these goblins are the ones responsible for the recent news of missing food. For a few days, the goblins bring both joy and annoyance to Momo's life. They have a love-hate relationship and follow Momo wherever she goes. The goblins are always eating because they are constantly hungry, which is why they steal food. Since they are invisible to most people, they can steal and eat food as they please. Momo doesn't want them to steal food anymore, so she takes them to the mountains, where her uncle told her there is plenty of food. However, things don't go as planned when the goblins see 3 wild piglets and decide to steal them. The piglets' parents try to save their babies, and the goblins refuse to give them back. This leads to a series of adventures that help Momo forget about her sadness and bring her joy. Her mother is crying while looking at her late husband's picture, but tries to hide her sadness from Momo. When Momo returns home, her mother is happy to see that she is having fun. While Momo and her mother are asleep, the goblins reveal that they were sent to the island to watch over Momo and her mother, and they need to report their progress to their superiors. The next day, Momo reads the letter her father wrote and leaves it on the table. The big goblin is trying to make a report when he sees the letter and decides to write that Momo and her mother are doing okay. He then sees the little goblin and joins him in a dance ritual that, when performed correctly, will send the letter to their superiors. Momo sees them dancing and joins in, watching in amazement as the letter is magically sent. Later that day, Momo and her mother watch the news and hear about a major weather disturbance headed towards the island. Meanwhile, the goblins continue to eat and steal food. They go to the attic and hide the food they have stolen. Momo goes to the attic and sees the large amount of food the goblins have stolen, as well as the mirror her mother lost. She becomes angry and tries to take the mirror, but the goblin accidentally breaks it. Momo's mother hears the sound of shattered glass and goes to find her in the attic. To her surprise, Momo's mother finds the large amount of stolen food in the broken mirror, with Momo standing next to it. She asks where it all came from, but Momo says she wouldn't understand. Momo tells her mother that goblins live in the house and are always hungry, which is why they steal. They have a heated argument and Momo's mother slaps her daughter. Momo wants to be alone and goes outside, despite her mother's concerns about the bad weather and her asthma. Without realizing it, Momo leaves her mother struggling to breathe and in pain. She heads to the beach and meets Yoda, who talks with her for a while. Then, Momo leaves and goes to a shed, where she sees the goblins for the first time. Despite being in pain, Momo's mother searches for her all over the island, asking everyone she meets. Eventually, she meets Yoda and asks about Momo's whereabouts. Yoda tells her that he saw Momo at the beach. Upon hearing this, Momo's mother collapses due to her condition. Yoda and his father help her return home. A friend of Momo's mother informs her of the bad news and she immediately goes home with him. When she arrives, she finds her mother in poor condition. The doctor is also stranded on another island. Momo suggests using the bridge, but her uncle explains that it is not yet open and the weather is too bad to cross it. Momo goes to the attic and asks the goblins for help in crossing the bridge to get the doctor, but they explain that they are forbidden to assist humans. Momo accused the goblins of being cowards and decided to cross the bridge herself. A friend of her mother, who was concerned for her well-being, caught up to her on a bike and they both attempted to cross the bridge. The weather was terrible, with strong rain and wind making it difficult to see the road ahead. Suddenly, a piece of cloth flew out of nowhere and got stuck in the front wheel of the bike, making it impossible for them to continue. In desperation, Momo looked up to the sky and asked for her father's help. Momo and her friend were able to continue their journey thanks to a group of goblins who appeared and provided them with magical transportation. The goblins protected them from the harsh weather and helped them reach their destination safely. The next morning, Momo's mother was out of danger and Momo returned to the attic to say goodbye to her goblin friends. They had completed their mission of looking after Momo and her mother and now had to return to their home above. The goblins transformed into mist and returned to the comics, eventually becoming water droplets in the clouds once more. The themes of A Letter to Momo include loss, family, friendship, and the importance of finding one's own path in life. The movie touches on universal experiences of grief and the challenges of adjusting to change, and it portrays the healing power of love and support. The characters are well developed and their relationships are nuanced and believable. The animation is beautiful and the story is emotionally impactful, making A Letter to Momo a memorable and rewarding viewing experience.